Fourth grade lesson 1.4 is rounding numbers, and this is a skill that comes into play in several things as you go on in the years 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade math. You'll see these and beyond. It really helps us to be able to estimate what our answer or what a reasonable answer should be when we do our calculations. And it gets to the point, once you learn how to round numbers, it gets to the point that you do it very quickly in your head. And that way, when you calculate something out, if your answer is very far off from what you thought it should be, then you can say, oh, whoa, I did something wrong. That doesn't sound right. And if we don't understand the value of the numbers, the rounded version of the number, sometimes we miss that. So it is a skill that I find very useful. It is something that takes some practice, so don't worry if you feel like you're tripping over yourself as you learn this. It's okay. You will become better at it and faster at doing it. And then suddenly it just goes quickly in your head. Let's get started. And first, I want you to understand kind of that middle point, or why we're saying some numbers are stay numbers and some numbers are up numbers. So we're going to look at this number line 0 through 10. And I'm going to ask you, which numbers are closest to 0? Out of all of these numbers, which ones are closest to 0? And you're probably thinking it looks like 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, 0 is very close. It is 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all numbers that are closer to 0 than they are to 10. I guess I should have worded it that way. Which numbers are closer to 0 than they are to 10? Closer to 0 than they are to 10. These are all closer to 0 than they are to 10. Okay? And which numbers are closer to 10 than they are to 0? Well, these numbers are all closer to 10 than they are to 0. Let's include 5 is almost right in the middle, so we're going to go ahead and give 5 the benefit of the doubt and call him closer to 10, even though he's pretty much right in the middle. So we'll say all of these numbers are closer to 10. Okay, keep that in mind. Now remember, in our place values, every place over is 10 more of these. And when we had 9 of these, there was just no more room for another little 1. When we had 9 and there was going to be one more little cube in there, we were just going to pack them together into 10 rods to make a 10. And then this would become 0, right? So if we keep in mind that 9 is as full as any one column could get, keep that in mind as we learn to round numbers. That's the first thing I want you to keep in mind. Also, something I got from a teacher years ago, I wish I could remember which teacher showed me this. I think it was, if I remember correctly, Miss Casey was a teacher I worked with a while back, years and years ago, and I think she showed me this. So I'll give her credit there. She said she had taught in younger grades. We both taught in middle school together, but when she was in the younger grades, she used pants to help as a tool to help with rounding numbers, and she put all of the lower numbers, the littler numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in one leg, and at the foot she put stay. And then she put all of the bigger numbers, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and at the foot she said up. And she said this image helped many of her kids learn how to understand the rounding of numbers, or be able to use that so that they could round the numbers until they didn't need it anymore. Always you're going to find there's tools that help you until you understand it all the way, and then they're like training wheels when you ride a bike, and then you ditch the training wheels. You're like, I got this from here. So for us, we'll use this kind of as our training wheels, because I have found over the years that it has helped some of my students help with learning to round numbers. So we'll use this. You'll see me draw it several times, and hopefully once we put it into use, it will make sense. So let's go ahead and look at some numbers and learn how to round them. All right, so this question is asking us to round 75,000 to the nearest 10,000ths place. I brought the chart back from what we used in the last lesson. I brought that back because it's super helpful for a lot of this stuff. So I put some steps here too, and so you may end up pausing the video as you practice these, just pausing the video on this slide so that you have the steps after you've seen it a couple times, and the pans and everything you need, and the example. So first step even before this is, if I have the chart, I'm going to write the number in the chart, 75,000. And then if I don't have it in the chart, I'll just underline the 10,000s place because it said to the 10,000s place. I put it on the chart just in case you are still getting the hang of which one is the 10,000s place, and that is this spot. So you underline the place value they're asking you to round it to, the nearest 10,000s place. So what is the nearest 10,000 for this number? And you look at the neighbor, and that is 5,000. And so in reality, what I'm asking here is this whole number closer to 70,000 or 80,000? It's kind of right in between. Almost, it is right in the middle, actually. So we'll do the rounding the way that we are going to with these steps. So we underline the place value. We check his neighbor. So I'm going to check his neighbor, the 5. I'll refer to the pants to do what the neighbor says. The 5 is in the up leg. So he tells his neighbor, because the neighbor's bossy, he says, go up. And so the 7 is going to listen to his neighbor. He's a little afraid of him. And so instead of a 7, he's going to go up to an 8. The next one up. And then the next step says all following numbers become zeros. That all becomes zeros. So what we're saying is, if you round it to the nearest 10,000s place, 75,000 is closer to 80,000 than it is to 70,000. 80,000 is the rounded number. We'll look at another example. Okay, so our next example says round to the nearest 10,000s place. Well, if we're not sure which is the 10,000s place, we'll put it on the chart. If you are, you would just underline the 10,000s place. That's right there. If you're not familiar with it yet, and that's okay, use the chart. We're all going to pick it up at different times, and whatever time you pick it up, as long as you're trying your best, that's the right amount of time. Underline the 10,000s place. Okay, that was step 1. Underline the place value you're rounding it to. They said the nearest 10,000s, that's 10,000s, we underlined. Check his neighbor. The neighbor is a 4, and on our pants, the 4 is a stay number. So the 4 tells our underlined number, stay the way you are. So our number does. He stays as he is a 6, he stays a 6, he's really afraid of his neighbor. And then every following number, including the neighbor, every following number turns to a 0. And so 64,999 rounded to the nearest 10,000s place is 60,000. That's how you do that. Now I'm going to take this number. I noticed something when I was working in the classroom with my students and they practiced. I noticed something was happening that I want to go ahead and just clarify here, because clearly I didn't explain this part well enough in live and in person. So I'm going to explain it here, and then of course I'll explain it live and in person to my in-class students if you don't watch this video away from me already and see before I have a chance to explain to you. Let's say it said round to the nearest thousands place. Okay, here's our thousands place. Here's our thousands place. All right, we'll follow these steps still the same steps. We underline the place value we're rounding it to. We check the neighbor. The neighbor is a 9. Here's 9. 9 is, it says, go up! And so the 4 goes up to a 5. And everything that follows turns to 0. Okay, here's the error that I saw being made and that I need to fix in my classroom. They left this as the answer because it said all following numbers become zeros. And yes, all following numbers became zeros. What they forgot or misunderstood probably, or that I didn't explain well enough, is that any of the numbers that were in front of the number I rounded to, those are still part of the number. There were still 10,000 sitting there. I just didn't round that value. I rounded to this value. This still stays as part of the whole number. So what we're saying is 64,999 is pretty close to 65,000. So we can't just drop off $60,000. That would be awful. We don't want to lose $60,000. So be careful that any numbers in front of the value we're rounding, those still stay there. Whatever's in front of them, they stay there, and they stay the exact numbers they were. So at least I can fix that with you guys, whoever's watching, and then any kids that didn't watch the video from my classroom will fix that. So that is something to watch out for. I noticed that I didn't explain that well enough, and so I'm fixing it now, and in class I'll fix that soon. So one more. Here we go. We're going to round to the nearest thousands place. This number, 934,567, 934,567. Underline the place value you're rounding to. They said to the nearest thousands place, so I will underline that. Okay. Then check the neighbor. Do what the neighbor says. The neighbor is a 5. 5 is an up number, so he tells my underlined number, go up! And so the 4 goes up 1 to become a 5. All the following numbers become zeros, and be careful, that's a 0, sorry. Be careful to bring down your 3 10,000s and your 900,000s, because we don't want to lose that money. That's a lot of money. We were rounding to this place value, but it doesn't change the fact that we have all this money. So what we're saying is 934,567 is pretty close to 935,000. So that's how we round numbers. You can pause it here to have this tool in front of you as you practice some. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You'll end up not needing the chart, you'll end up not needing the steps, and you'll end up not needing the pants after a while. You'll use them until your brain just doesn't need them anymore, but it does become easy. But be patient with yourself. You've got this.